group of powerful figures in Hollywood, as well as powerful politicians who are in fact not human. They're reptiles or they're lizards, perhaps extraterrestrial.
I don't think it is a human. I think it's a Sasquatch.
You know, every time I speak, I want the truth to come out.
If you're a true experiencer or a true abductee, you have what's called high strangeness. All these weird, bizarre paranormal things start to happen. Almost like your house is either being haunted or nobody really knows. Wow, that thing's weird.
Go ahead and run. Run home and cry to mama.
Let's get weird.
Welcome to the Weird Ones, where the weird ones are. Sorry, I messed up my own name. Here we got Keith Evans, who is a paranormal investigator. He is also an author of the book, The Hayes House, Ghosts Are People Too. How are you doing, Keith?
I'm doing good.
Good. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm a paranormal investigator. I've been doing paranormal research just about all my life. I first got involved with paranormal research when I was about 4 years old, just by being an empath and being able to, get enjoyment out of, feeling what other people felt about, old houses and especially decorative wood within a house. There was a relative of mine that had this really shiny type wood on the wall. And I used to always, as a 4-year-old, just make over that. Like, oh, that's so neat. That's so cool. And my parents were a little bit worried, since most 4-year-olds aren't really paying attention to wood on someone's wall. But the old wainscoting was highly polished and had a really glossy shine to it. It wasn't dull like the modern painted dry walls are. And I really liked that. But I think what I was feeling was past relatives, that was probably what they really enjoyed and loved about the house, was the wooden walls and how you saw the natural grain of the wall and how it really shined and stood out. So I think I was picking up as an empath on former relatives' enjoyment of that part of the house. So that's how I first knew I was different than most people, and I was tuning into things that most people weren't paying attention to and weren't even concerned about. And then from there, it wasn't until I was close to retirement that I started purchasing equipment and kind of going about doing it the scientific way. And the first 3 pieces of equipment that I had was an Ovilus 4, a millimeter, and a thermal imager. And that's mainly what I still use today to complete most of my paranormal research.
Very interesting. Where are you from?
Originally Maryland.
Maryland? Where are you living now as a retiree?
Florida.
Florida? Nice. Is it warm down there right now?
Yes, today is kind of humid and just a lot of rain.
All right. Ooh, rain. I like rain. I like the sound of rain on the roof, especially metal roofs. That's always nice. It's kind of soothing sometimes. Also, I have to say real quick, I enjoy your YouTube videos, your short sessions. Yes. I really like those. I think you have a fantastic voice. I can listen to you talk all day.
Well, thanks. I've had English teachers that say that I butcher the English language. So
really?
I try my best to get the information across that I think people need during the paranormal sessions. And I try my best to give the ghosts and spirits the benefit of the doubt. Most people are, so negative towards any ghost or spirit as not being a proper person or or just neutral to most situations. But
Mhm.
I've only found ghosts and spirits to be either helpful or neutral towards me. I haven't found any that were demonic or evil, or if anything, they might be angry. But if someone treated me like I was demonic or evil, even though I'm not, I guess I would be angry too. But
Right.
thanks. I'm glad you love my, paranormal short sessions. My YouTube channel is Paranormal Short Sessions by Keith Evans. That's the very long name.
Yeah.
And some people say they have a hard time finding it on YouTube, but I have the same problem. It seems like whenever I search for a new YouTube channel to follow, sometimes it just doesn't come up. I have to scroll and scroll and scroll and actually find one of their YouTube videos before I can subscribe.
Right. Sometimes the YouTube algorithm kind of puts like new stuff and view videos towards the back and some reason makes it a little bit harder to find. But yeah, no, you started as soon as you started sending me those videos through Instagram, I watched every single one of them, and yeah, and I just enjoy hearing you talk. I honestly think that you could probably be a narrator or maybe even do audio books because that's how much I like hearing you talk.
Well, I always wanted to have my own TV show and really keep the cost down. Just have me and a cameraman
Yeah.
or a camera woman, someone who does not negatively react to the paranormal. I mean, I've had people that want to go on paranormal research with me, but every knock they hear, they're like, the way I would react if a loud noise goes off and it catches me by surprise.
Mhm.
It's just you can't always react negatively towards everything while you're doing paranormal research. If you do, I think that's kind of allowing the ghost or spirit to not feel comfortable with you. It's just like if someone walks into a restaurant and you go, "Oh my God, look at him," or you flinch and say, run to the other side of the restaurant, that person's probably not going to want to talk to you. And you have to do the same thing when you're doing paranormal research. The knocking, a lot of people think the knocking or the scratching or the tapping is a ghost or spirit trying to come after them, and it's not. I'm actually going to be explaining that in a hopefully the June issue of is it okay to mention a magazine?
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
American Paranormal. I have a issue this month of May called Doppelganger, but I have another writing that I did, article, and I'm hoping they put it in the June edition of American Paranormal. But it's my way of explaining why ghosts and spirits, make the knocking sounds and the tapping sounds and the scratching sounds. Most people are severely upset about scratching sounds, but for me, it's not a ghost or spirit trying to be annoying to you, like someone scratching their fingernails on a chalkboard. But ghosts or spirits are electromagnetic energy. And
Mhm.
electromagnetic energy, if it is, once we pass away, we're still people with a mindset to stand next to a wall or, on top of a chair. And as electromagnetic energy kind of waddles or moves back and forth between the um, mode of air and the mode of the solid chair or the mode of the solid floor, or the wall, which is solid, you're going to hear that scratching sound.
Mhm.
So it's just a ghost or spirit hovering near something. And as electromagnetic energy goes in and out of one medium. When I say medium, I'm talking about solid, liquid, gas. So going between the gas of the air and the solid of the wall, it makes a scratching sound. And it's kind of like the ghost or spirit hovering near that.
Mhm.
And I think most ghosts and spirits realize that people are unnerved by that. So they get to the point where they learn not to hover and cause a scratching sound. But I guess at times they are just doing what they do and they're not thinking about, well, I'm making a scratching sound again. It's going to upset the living people.
Mhm.
But that's the way I look at it. That's my theory. I don't think it's any ghost or spirit trying to harm or hurt us in any way.
All right. So you just answered one of the questions that I've had for you, which is what you think causes the knocking and all that. So
Do you want me to go in more in depth about the knocking and tapping?
if you'd like to, you can, yes. Unless you want them to read about it in the magazine, unless you're trying to get subscribers to that. Maybe
Well,
because you kind of set that up for a good summary and made it more
right.
interesting. So maybe. So what's the magazine?
It's called American Paranormal.
Okay,
So
American
I'll just
Paranormal.
wait and I'll let everyone read about the tapping and the knocking and American Paranormal. And I think I go in more in depth and give examples which most people who enjoy the paranormal will like to read.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think is the difference between the causes of knocking and tapping sounds? Wait, that probably ties right into that same concept, huh?
Yes.
Uh, so do you believe in angels? Because you haven't
Well,
experienced any demonic energies. Have you experienced? Do you think the positive energies that you have experienced might be angels?
Well, I I look at it this way. I think an angel, in my perspective, isn't the biblical type of angel. It is the ghost or spirit, like say, an everyday person who does something kind to someone else that doesn't, really need to or have to. Like if someone's carrying something and you run over and you open the door for them.
Hmm.
I think there's a ghost of spirits that are like that. Now, some might be connected to a living person by being a grandfather or grandmother who passed away, and some might just be the ghost that's out and about and does a good deed. So I look at the guardian angel ghost as not the biblical type angel, but the guardian angel who does something positive for a living person. And I definitely feel that that does happen.
Yeah.
And if anyone can obtain the May edition of American Paranormal, I talk about a doppelganger incident that I had, the only one that I know of, and that was a positive type situation, almost like a guardian angel type, response, but via a doppelganger. And I'm not sure in the article if I explained it as well as possible, but after the situation had taken place, maybe a year later, I actually asked a healthcare professional how they knew that the bleeding had stopped. And they looked at me and said they had no way of knowing. And they claimed that they didn't tell me that because they had no way of knowing. So the doppelganger who appeared to me as a healthcare professional chose a healthcare professional that I trusted and that I would listen to. So had they went back in and adjusted the clamps near my esophagus where all the ibuprofen laid over the last 10 years while I was trying to finish up in the Army Reserves and the federal government to get a pension,
Hmm.
Had they went back in and tried to adjust those clamps, they might have even caused more bleeding. But the bleeding did stop, and that's what the doppelganger who looked like a healthcare provider told me. So I refused to actually go and have more surgical procedures, which may have been a clamp or it may have been something else. And by doing that, I probably helped myself out. If they would have went in there, it's a very fragile area. If they try to clamp it again, it might start bleeding again, So, and the surgical procedure to reclamp the bleeding was supposed to start at about 1:30 p.m. and they had done lab results by 4 p.m. and they said the lab results showed that my red blood cells had increased. So that definitely showed that the bleeding had stopped. So had it not been for that doppelganger posing as a healthcare provider that I knew and trusted, I probably would have went back and went into maybe surgery, and who knows, could have bled to death.
Wow. That is that's one positive experience, I'd say.
And
Maybe.
it's a situation with doppelgangers.
Yeah.
If they appear to you as someone that you know and trust, would you ever actually know that it did not happen unless you ask the person about the advice or the information that they gave to you at a later date? And unless that person says, no, I never said that, I never talked to you about that, that would be the only way you would know, that it was a doppelganger.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
And for those who don't know, a doppelganger is like a living, like a ghost of a person who is still living. So you see a ghost that looks like someone who's still alive, and they usually say something profoundly important or something that's helpful, even though in most literature they're always portrayed in a negative way. But I think that is because most people gravitate towards negative paranormal or like horror paranormal. And there's so much good going on in the paranormal. I kind of like to gravitate towards the good.
Well, it's a good way to be. It's a good way to stay positive and, be in a happy mind state. I feel
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
if you're always being negative, you're always going to experience negative things. Like if you're blaming things or people for situations that you happen to be in, that's on you. So if you change your mindset to a more positive outlook, you're going to only experience more positive things.
Right.
And just like with the paranormal. So if you're looking for negative in paranormal, you're going to find it. If you're looking for positive in the paranormal, I believe you will find it.
Yeah,
And that's how I look
agree.
at it. So,
And a lot of times it's a lot of interpretation. Just like with the tapping, the knocking, and the scratching. If you want to think it's some evil ghost or spirit trying to get you, then you're going to be upset. But if you understand that that's just a normal certain reaction from a ghost or spirit being electromagnetic energy, then you don't take it so personal.
So do you believe all paranormal ghost spirits entities are of people who have passed, or do you believe that they could also be possibly interdimensional beings?
I guess it's a possibility. It's definitely I can't rule it out, but even interdimensional beings are living. It could be that some ghosts or spirits might actually be caught up in some type of time warp, and you might see them and think they're a ghost or spirit, but they might actually be a time warp where they were alive and they were warped into 2022 when, say, I saw them. So you might see something, but if it's a time warp, uh, they might actually be alive when you're seeing them, even though in reality they're dead as of 2022. So that could happen too.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel there are like miniature, black holes or very dense, small objects. And those small, dense objects can bend space and time. So if you're near an object like that, for a certain period of time, it might bend your space and time maybe to the future or maybe to the past. And you might be someplace that you say, well, this don't look familiar to me. I've heard, it's never happened to me, at least I don't think so. But I've heard of people say that they were walking through the woods and that they would like see this old house and they'd say, I don't remember this old house being here before. And then they'd keep walking. And then on the way back, it wasn't there. And they say, we're coming the same way. We didn't deviate at all. I think what is happening, there's a time warp, and it might not even involve them. It might be a time, say a small black hole, very miniature speck of dust that's very dense, was near this house sometime in the past and caused the house itself to be bent either forward or backward in time. And you might be a spectator and seeing something else being sent through time due to a small dense black hole. So it may not involve you traveling at all. It might just involve the property or the house, and you just might happen to be close enough to see that with your own eyes.
Very interesting. I like that train of thought. I've never thought of it like in that aspect. So it was very thought provoking for sure.
Yes. And I mean, I wish situations like that would happen to me more often. I mean, I can't say that they've happened to me in any definite way, but I know it's possible. And if it's possible, it's going to happen to someone. And there's been too many reports of people saying that, strange things would happen where they would get lost or they would be someplace familiar and then it wouldn't look familiar any longer. And I think that's the type of situation that's taking place, where there's a time warp and either they are or the physical property is going either forward or backward in time, and they're observing it even if they aren't actually going forward or backwards in time.
I gotcha. That's very thought provoking for sure. I like the way you think on that. I think that's a very good possibility as well. I believe in stuff like that. Like I believe like there possibly could be, like you said, little specks of a time warp, like the kind of like the veil is being lifted a little bit and it just kind of like they just kind of come through, or we go through and we just experience it for a limited amount of time and then we're out of it or they're out of it. So tell me a little bit about your book. Like what kind of what ghosts or spirits or entities did you meet while you were at the Hayes house?
Well, at the Hayes house, I had completed paranormal research in Apalachicola in, other buildings within that area. And I had noticed that the ghosts of spirits that had worked in some of those buildings had also lived at the Hayes house. So I figured, well, if I have an opportunity to do paranormal research at the Hayes house, I may actually pick up two families. that I've already picked up who've worked in that area while I was doing paranormal research, at other locations. So I thought it was a good probability. And I kept going there and knocking on the door, but the owner who, she lived out of town. So it was hard to catch her at the Hayes house. And I went there maybe 3 or 4 times. And the last time I went and knocked on the door, the owner actually came to the door. And I told her who I was and that I would like to do paranormal research there. And I was hoping she would give me written permission to, write a book about the Hayes house. And then she smiled. So I thought, whoa, that's a yes, because you won't believe how many doors I knock on. And the person looks like they're ready to pass out when I ask to do paranormal research. You get a very, oh my God, I'm sick to my stomach look from most people. But when she smiled and said, yeah, that'll be fine. So I got her the documentation to sign for me to do the book and do paranormal research at her house. And I was right. I discovered both families that had worked in the area. The Hayes family, who had lived at the Hayes house from World War II, around 1942, up until the last Hayes family member sold the house in 1996. I picked up on Hayes family members, Kathleen, Annie, which was Pat's mother, and Pat was Kathleen's husband, and also Sunshine, who was Pat's aunt, and she had lived there. And there was a lady who lived there for a long period of time, Mary. So that was at least 5 people from the Hayes family, and also picked up with about 3 people from the Buck family. There was Jeff Buck, who originally built the Hayes house in 1908, and he lived there until he passed away in 1921. And there was his son, L.G. Buck, and also picked up what I think is his youngest daughter. And I believe her name was Emmeline. So that was like about 8 family members between the Buck and the Hayes family. And they seemed to all want the house to remain as original as possible. And it was about 90% original when I did my paranormal research for the book. And that was between the years of about 2016 and 2017. And the house was sold in, I guess it was around 2018, 2019. And the new owner did a lot of renovations. So a lot of times my worry is that the ghosts and spirits will come back from heaven to protect what they love. If it doesn't look like their house anymore, will they still come back to protect it? So the new owner would not give me any permission to do paranormal research there. And I remember right after the house sold, I was using my, I don't know if you can hear the thunder, but it's a storm outside. I don't like the loud noises, especially if they're unexpected.
Right.
But anyway, the new owner, I had talked to one of the owners before they purchased the Hayes house, and I'd stressed the importance of keeping everything original. And I didn't get a very good response. I just got a walk away.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can only do so much. You can request that people keep something original, but anyway, I had seen pictures when they were working on the Hayes house, and the whole upstairs, second floor, it looked like they pretty much gutted everything out except for the exterior walls. And I mean, it had the original horizontal wood boards, the original tongue and groove ceiling boards, and of course the original hardwood flooring. But I was in Destin, Florida, and I had turned my Obelisk 5 on, and I just, wherever I'm at, I'll kind of like ask, hey, is there any ghosts or spirits at the Hayes house to let me know how you're going, how you're doing, and, is everything okay? And I got the 2 words on the Obelisk 5 was, it's hell.
No
And
way.
I thought, well, that's kind of negative. Of course, I wasn't thinking that all this was being torn out by the Hayes house. At that time, I hadn't got the pictures from a fan, which I went online and asked anyone if they knew what was going on at the Hayes house after this happened. But usually, if I get negative words, I'll just shut down because I don't know exactly who the ghosts and spirits are. And sometimes I'll just cut things short. But I think that was Kathleen saying it's hell because they're destroying what she had known since 1942. It was bought by a group of people that wanted to make it into a nice bed and breakfast. And so the actual kitchen, the original kitchen on the first floor that Kathleen Hayes used for over 50 years, that's now just a bedroom.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm sure she's having a rough experience then, for sure.
yeah, that's what I thought, and I felt bad because I wish I'd have left the Obelisk 5 on and gave her a chance to express herself instead of being so close-minded, like so many paranormal researchers are. They think, well, if it's a negative word, it might not be a positive person, and I don't want to have to deal with it. I guess if someone has seen the house they love just be pretty much revarnished and torn apart and made look new, I'd probably say it's hell too. So I felt bad about that for shutting, Kathleen down. But I never thought in a million years it would have been her until, after I got the words, I started thinking, well, what does this mean? And then I thought, oh my God, the house did sell February or March of 2018. I was worried maybe they tore it down, because
Right.
a lot of businessmen will just tear it down and put it in a parking lot. But I found out that it wasn't torn down. But when one of the construction people sent me pictures of the inside, you could see that, they were like they were taking the picture from, say, the far, southeast corner of the house, and you could see, pretty much all the way through to the northwest corner. And it was just all gutted out except for the exterior.
Oh,
So that was sad.
yeah, I can imagine.
I was able to visit the Hayes house for a short period of time. There's a motel close to the Hayes house, which is using and renting the rooms. And I just asked the lady if I could see what it looked like since they did the, remodeling. And the whole time I was in there, I felt nauseous, like I was going to fall to the floor because all the originality, in the most part, was gone. Even the old doors, the original brass decorative doorknobs and decorative doorknob key plates where the old skeleton key would go in, all that was gone. And I thought, my God, you don't get rid of the original doors. And I was just staring at the doors saying, please let it be the original door. And I thought, it's just not. And I think at one point I actually got close enough to the door to kind of knock on it. And, the old doors were solid. And these doors were like hollow plastic.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh no. So that leads me back to the reason why Kathleen was saying it's hell.
Right. The carpentry seems to modern carpentry seems to have gone out like out the window. Like everything seems so much cheaper and
Yes.
is rushed to put together, and it's not the same. I feel like it's not the same strength that we had back in the day, and a lot of people, it's sad, but a lot of people just they don't care about history, and they would rather erase it and not deal with it or imagine what it was or what it could have been.
I agree. And
And they
it's
just go right over it. Like you said, most people would just put a parking lot over a lot of things.
it's sad because having the original doors, the original brass decorative doorknobs and skeleton key base plates, the original trim, the original walls, floors, ceiling. If anything, you're going to have residual energy that's stored there,
Mm,
and, of course, I already identified at least 8 or 9 of the intelligent ghosts of spirits from the Hayes family and the Buck family, but you're getting rid of all that residual energy, and it's sad.
it
And
is.
I lived at the Hayes house after Hurricane Michael for like 3 or at least 4 or 5 months before the owners that gave me permission to do the book sold it. And there's original, there was residual energy where you could hear someone running up the steps.
Oh wow.
And I would wake up. I rented the 3rd floor apartment. I would wake up with someone running up the steps of the 3rd floor apartment,
Hmm.
and I would already be woken up, and there was no one at the top, but you could hear someone just running right up. And and one night before I went to sleep, it was usually late at I won't say late at night, but I'm not really sure of all the times when I heard someone running up the 3rd floor stairs. But the one time that I heard someone walking across the floor, they started over on the north side and walked across to the south side. And you could hear, just sound like a normal person walking, but it sounded like wood that kind of just made a squeaking sound. And I was wide awake then. I hadn't fallen asleep yet, but there was nobody there because the room wasn't that dark. And I tried to recreate that sound. At the time, the 3rd floor apartment had carpet, and at the time I was a little over 200 pounds, and I couldn't even create that sound by stomping. So, but you're going to lose that type of residual energy when you take the old wood out,
Right.
and that's sad because you're destroying that part of the paranormal, and I would like to see that preserved as much as possible.
Right. Well, like you said, ghosts are people too. It's the title of your book.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I mean, they also have feelings. And obviously, like you said, Kathleen had stated to you that it's like hell.
Yes.
And I don't blame her for feeling that way.
Yeah, I don't either. I just wish I hadn't cut her off, because I usually, if I get a cuss word, I'll just discontinue because I think, well, it's a ghost. It's not really in a good humor. But I wish I'd continued to talk to her and thought about it a little bit.
Yeah.
So I asked all paranormal people out there, be thoughtful about ghosts and spirits. If they say something like dead or die or kill, if the ghost or spirit is from 200 years ago, they might use the word kill because their English may not be that good, and they may have not went to school at all. And to them, they're dead. Dead is the same to them as the word kill. So if they choose your kill on your ghost box, don't be so quick to think that that the ghost is telling you that they're going to kill you, because they're probably just saying that I'm dead, just to let you know that I'm a ghost and I'm talking to you. But, you know, if you're not very well educated, the difference between kill and dead, you know, if something is killed, it's dead.
Right.
So anyway, just keep that in mind before, you know, most people learn from my mistakes in the past, like the way I shut down Kathleen for telling me that it's hell instead of being there for her, which I should have been, you know, even though she's passed away, you know, I still consider her to be a friend, a ghost friend. And, you know, you should support your friends. So if you get negative words, try to think your way through it and don't always think that they're gearing it towards you. And because had I known about the remodeling that was going on, I would have knew ahead of time that it was Kathleen. It wasn't until after probably 24 hours later, what I kept thinking about it and I thought, oh, suppose they are remodeling or tearing the place down. Maybe that was someone from the Hayes family experiencing how they were feeling negative about it. And that's when I started to go, at that time, I was still on Facebook. So I started to go on Facebook and asked all my fans if they knew anything about the Hayes house. And that's when one construction worker had sent the information over about how they gutted it out on the inside on the second floor. And I mean, that was just heartbreaking.
Now, you said that did you kind of like get to know each spirit that was in the Hayes house? All the 8 of them, I think you said.
Yes, I think so. It seemed like Pat and Kathleen were more predominant than say Mary, his mom, Annie, and his aunt Sunshine. And the Hayes family was more predominant than say the Buck family. But I probably asked more questions to the Hayes family because I knew how they used the house and I knew more about them than I did the Buck family. So maybe it's unfair for me to say that the Hayes family was more predominant. Maybe it's just the fact that I spent more time and geared most of my questions towards the Hayes family because I knew more about the Hayes family and I knew how they use each room. So I could develop, questions concerning that where, you know, if you don't really know how the Buck family used that room, you kind of, you know, other than the kitchen or dining room, you can't really hear your question.
Hold on. I think you're blocking your mic.
Blocking my mic.
Yeah. There you go.
Is that better?
Yeah. You went muffled there for a second.
Uh-oh. I'm trying to think what I last said. Well, when it comes to the Hayes family, I knew more about the Hayes family's history. So I spent more time asking questions to the Hayes family. So had I knew as much about the Buck family and had asked as many questions or an equal amount of questions towards the Buck family, they might have been more or as evenly predominant. So it's just how you look at it.
Yeah, it's kind of how you aim your questions and where you focus your energy is where you get the most response.
Right.
So if you're focusing on the Hayes, obviously you get more responses from them.
Right, and that's pretty much what I did.
Okay. Can you do like a possible introduction for each of them, like what you know about them?
Yeah, let me see. I'll start out with Kathleen Hayes. Kathleen Hayes was married to Pat Hayes, and they purchased the Hayes house about 1942. And Kathleen was an avid bridge player. She liked to play cards. She was a member of at least 2 different bridge clubs when that was popular. So I would say they probably played bridge up until maybe the 1960s. So maybe even some of the older people up into the 70s. But that was something she really enjoyed. And she was a mother of two daughters. And you know, she was involved in church. She was a Sunday school teacher. There was a Methodist church that she belonged to. And her husband, Pat, he had originally started out working in the turpentine when it comes to bleeding the pine trees for sap.
Oh, okay.
And that was a big industries before they had plastics, and you know, they could boil it down and make all types of rubber and glue and things like that. So and later on he became he worked for the bank, and was on the board of directors of the local bank. And he was also a member of the Methodist church there in Apalachicola. And he enjoyed hunting and fishing. He liked to hunt doves. Apparently was one of his favorite birds to shoot. It seems to me like doves wouldn't be that big, but maybe back when, you know, he passed away, I guess in what, 1976. So maybe, 78. So maybe back then the doves were heavier, but most doves that I see in the wild look kind of skinny, you know.
Right.
There was also Annie. Annie was his mom, and she was married to a gentleman that worked for the oil company. I think it was Standard Oil Company. And she and her husband lived in Tallahassee, but they were frequent visitors to stay at the Hayes house. They had their own room at the Hayes house. And Annie liked having her picture taken. So it seemed like anytime I would get a blurry, you know, my camera would not come in focus. I think it was because the spirit of Annie was there, and it was kind of confusing my camera into being out of focus. But that was her favorite thing to do, where some people just are not happy to have their picture taken. She liked to be, you know, the center stage and have her picture taken. And there was Annie's sister and Pat's aunt, Sunshine. And Sunshine never married, and she lived at the Hayes house from 1942 until she passed away in 1956. And she had been a school teacher. I think it was elementary school that she taught. And she also was a member of the Methodist Church in Apalachicola. And then there was Mary. Mary was a friend of the family that lived there from 1942 until she passed away in the 1960s. And she was a young lady that I'm not sure what the proper term is, but she more or less had a childlike personality, even though she was very kind, gentle, and very helpful to the family. But she, whatever the term is for it, she more or less had a very younger personality, maybe like an 8-year-old. And she lived there until she passed away in the 1960s. And let me see who I forgot. I think that's everyone for the Hayes family. For the Buck family, Jeff Buck had moved to Apalachicola from South Carolina, I guess around 1907. And he was working on building a motel in town. And then after that was done, he built the Hayes house to live in 1908. And he was able to purchase the old growth lumber, because shortly after, say, the 1920s, they had cut down just about most of the old growth lumber. So he made the Hayes house, you know, look nice with the old growth lumber. And he also was in the turpentine business also, if I remember correctly. So he did that type of work also. And he passed away unexpectedly in 1921, and his family more or less gave the house back to the bank and relocated. So his oldest son, he had 5 children. His oldest son was uh, GL Buck, or LG Buck, I'm sorry. LG Buck, he didn't like his 2 names, so he went by his initials. And he also was a businessman in town and apparently owned several businesses. But I think he I don't think he grew old in the town, even though I had talked to one of his relatives that said they remember him when they were young, because I think he passed away sometime in the mid 60s. But I'm not sure if he actually lived in Apalachicola, but he kept in touch with one of his relatives in Apalachicola. So it's kind of sketchy as to what all he did with his life. But the youngest daughter, uh, Ameline, uh, I got her name in what I called the Mary room, because that was the room towards the back southeast side of the house that Mary had until she passed away in 1960. And I figured out of 5 kids, probably the youngest daughter had that small room. So anyway, I don't know too much about Emmeline. It, if Jeff Buck had several kids, I think his oldest child may have already been grown and had left the house by the time it was built in 1908, but I might be wrong. So I don't know that much about Emmeline other than, she did give me her name during the paranormal sessions there at the Hayes house. Now, when Hurricane Michael came along, I didn't leave the coast because I didn't want to get caught in that mess. And, everyone, most of the hotel rooms were like booked up from like 200 miles away. And I didn't feel like driving away 200 miles just to come back and nothing happened. Excuse me. So I took my chances. I stayed, but I'll regret that because all the tapes that I had, the video footage I had stored in my laptop, all the thermal images, all the still photos, all the videotapes from at least 2 different angles of each paranormal session, which I did 1-hour paranormal session of each of the 17 rooms and the 3 porches at the Hayes house. All that got washed away and I never did find it.
Oh no. That's
during the
terrible.
storm surge. So
Yeah.
but anyway, I do remember that Ameline was, I think that was the only ghost or spirit that actually gave me their name.
Oh,
And
really?
the one relative of Jeff Buck had given me a copy of a document that a person had given to him that came to a family reunion. And he said he didn't even know all of Jeff Buck's children's names. But the person who came to the person was much older than him, had came to a family reunion. This was like in the 1960s or 1970s, had wrote down the 5 names of the Buck children. And that also got washed away during Hurricane Michael.
Oh
But
no.
the name was similar to Emmeline, if I remember correctly. So
Wow. Um, that's pretty interesting. I like how you've how you explain every one of them. That's very well said.
Well, when I do paranormal research, I try to do thoroughly. I try to go back to the same place multiple times. I think it takes the ghosts of spirits a while to size you up and say, do I really want to talk to this guy? They might, think, well, he's coming here today and being nice, but tomorrow, who knows what bad names he might call us,
Right.
depending on what ghosts of spirits have had in the past. So I think it doesn't do anyone justice just to go for a couple hours and say, all right, I walked around in every room. You have to spend some time there. It's almost like, the ghosts of spirits have to get to know you, have confidence in you, feel comfortable, just like a living person. They have to feel comfortable that if they share something with you, it's going to be utilized in a proper way. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to sit down and tell them your life story if you're going to paint it in a negative way. So,
Exactly.
and it's the same way with ghosts of spirits. And once they feel comfortable with you, they're more apt to start opening up and talking. And that takes time. And I put that type of time in. And of course, I was very lucky that I had an owner that gave me a key and said that I could come anytime and, do paranormal research at the common areas. And she just requested that I be respectful to whoever was there, because at that time, some of the house was being used as Airbnb, and some
Yeah.
parts of the house was being used as a quiet place for artists to come and paint in, quiet. And so I had a lot of time to spend there. And I think that allowed for me to get to know the ghosts of spirits and vice versa. And I think it made for a much better book. And sometimes it's hard for a owner to allow someone to have that type of access to a place, um, especially if the owner's living there, and especially if it's being used as commercial property.
Right.
So, and I think it almost takes that type of time. If you don't invest the time, you may not get very good paranormal activity. Now, there may be some ghosts or spirits that are so used to paranormal people coming in and doing sessions that, they might open up and talk more readily and more quickly. But you might get some places where if you don't go 6 or 7 times, you might not get any paranormal activity. And then once the ghosts of spirits feel comfortable with you, you're going to get good paranormal activity.
Right.
I certainly got better paranormal activity when I was living there than when I first started doing paranormal research at the Hayes house in was it 2016. I mean, I did hear running up the steps, but when you're there and people have access to the front door, to the back door, you never know whether it's the person that was living on the 3rd floor apartment.
Right.
But when you're living there and you know that no one's there except you and you hear it, then you know it's residual energy.
That's a good take to have. I like that you indulge yourself into the research and you take your time, because a lot of people don't take that time. Like you even see it on TV shows where, like, ghost hunters and all that stuff, they spend one night there and the whole time they're just like, whoa, what's that, and they don't really get anything. I mean, they sometimes they might show you a little bit of something, but sometimes I don't even feel like it's really real contact, because like you said, a lot of them they'll take it as a negative. And that's, I feel like, what these shows kind of portray, like ghost hunters and whatnot. They more focused on like a negative experience or something scary.
And it's the situation where you're not actually seeing or hearing any paranormal activity. You're just getting the response from the paranormal researcher. And I think that happens because they're on a limited budget, they're on a limited time to get something for the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I really feel that with my style, I could go in and get something for a show. And I don't mean a whole lot of bright lights. I mean, one cameraman and me. It's less intrusive. Most ghosts or spirits are more than willing to talk to one or two people than to talk to a whole crowd.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel when these groups go in and they just ordain the place with, paranormal searchers on each floor, probably the ghosts and spirits don't even feel comfortable. But I mean, I could keep a very low budget, paranormal research with just me and the cameraman, and set up cameras. If we have permission from the owners to do that for a prolonged period of time, to maybe catch some things that's not the researcher interacting with the ghosts or spirits, and maybe even catch something that's residual energy. But I think it can be done. And I think right now, most ghosts and spirits, it's like spirits talk amongst themselves. And I think most of them say, well, this Keith Evans guy is a pretty cool guy. He's down to earth. And, he actually wants to be friends with you and hear your side of the story and listen. And so I think, my reputation probably allows most ghosts and spirits to say, hey, I know that guy. Sure, I'll talk to him. And it could even be that if I do a show, maybe I shouldn't even have a cameraman. Maybe I should just have a GoPro, or be in a room and set up a couple camcorders, and that would even allow the ghosts and spirits to feel more comfortable. But I think most TV shows will probably want to have the high quality, high definition film that comes from a camera that costs about $20,000. But I mean, you don't have to make a big production out of it. I don't, and I get paranormal activity.
Right.
But I think the ghosts and spirits, at least in the area where I've lived, I've been here up on the Panhandle off and on since I was in the regular Army back in the early 80s. But I've lived here continuously since, I retired in 2016. So I think most of the ghosts and spirits know me. And, I catch a lot of stuff that's not, visual. Very little is visual as far as seeing something move, or, like a curtain, or a towel float across the floor, or a spoon move around. And I'm not saying that's not paranormal. It's ghosts and spirits. Every ghost and spirit has their own talent for communicating with the living. And I think some ghosts and spirits will like to show as a thermal image. Some ghosts and spirits might want to do disembodied hellos. I hear Keith a lot. Where I'm at right now, it's a fairly new apartment to me, but I was getting ready to go to sleep one night and I heard Keith, and I knew no one's in the house. So I didn't say anything right away. I just listened. So I waited about 2 minutes and I said, I did hear you, but I was waiting to see if you're going to say anything else. Never heard anything else. But whatever ghost or spirit likes to say my name, I think that takes a lot of energy. And once they say my name, I don't think they have any energy to say anymore. And I think we have to take that in consideration. But I wish I could afford to just play a tape recorder, so when I could catch a disembodied voice saying my name. But I guess that's the second time since I heard my name be called at the Hayes house when I was living there after Hurricane Michael. And I think that was around January or December of 2018 or January of 2019, I think it was. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
And so it doesn't happen that often. If it happened during, December or January between 2018 and 2019, and the last time it happened was a couple weeks ago in 2022, that's about 3 years apart. Now, had I fallen asleep, I'd have missed it. And I doubt if I'd have heard it. It wasn't that loud. But I just laid down, so I know I wasn't asleep, and I don't think I was dreaming, But usually when I hear my name, I'll say, I'll think someone is actually talking to me, and I'll say, "Yeah, what? Who's that?" And I knew that nobody was in the house. It's a very quiet neighborhood. So when I heard my name, Keith, I just was quiet to see if they were going to say something else. Because I think if I say something right away, then they're going to stop talking. But I waited about 2 minutes and I said, "Yeah, I heard you, but I wanted to wait to see if you're going to say something else." But I never did hear anything else. But that's interesting. And that's paranormal that happens when I'm not even doing a paranormal session. So I think that's pretty cool. And,
Probably has a lot to do with you being an empath.
It could be that too. I do feel that some people are more in tune to the ghosts of spirits. And even when I see a ghost or spirit, other people around me don't see that ghost or spirit. And that has happened to me before. I don't know if we have time to go into that. Do we have time to go into that?
We have all the time that you have.
Okay, that sounds good. I was doing paranormal research at the 1880. They had given me written permission, and I wanted to write a book about the 1880. And I wanted it to be a book like the Hayes House, all about the family members who were like guardian angels of the 1880. But the only problem was I knew all the past people who had owned it and who had lived there, which it was like rental property. So there had been multiple owners over like the last, close to 100 years or so, over 100 years, because it was built around 1883. And I just couldn't find that. I wasn't getting the owners who had lived there. I wasn't getting like the guardian angel type ghost. I was definitely getting paranormal activity. And the paranormal activity that took place was about this ghost or spirit. It was a young lady. She looked like the owner. The owner came down about the second weekend that I was there. And it was him, his wife, and his sister. And I thought it was his sister's daughter, because I knew he had a daughter, but I thought his daughter was older. And I did meet her later on. And I talked to this young lady when they weren't there. And I asked her, I said, "Are you the owner's daughter?" And she said, "Yes." And I noticed, in Florida, you're going to get a suntan, and your face is usually going to have a sunburn or a suntan. And all the family was, had a good suntan, but this young lady did not. And I thought, well, that kind of stuck out as she's out in the sun with them. The first time I saw her, they parked in the parking lot right beside the 1880 in St. Augustine, Florida. And she was the fourth person to get out of the car. So when they walked in, it was him, his wife, then his sister, and then this young lady. And I went out one time and they were sitting on the porch. And there was only four rocking chairs, and all four were taken. And he invited me to sit down. And I just kind of looked at him because all the chairs were taken. And I told, well, not this time. And then I looked at the young lady and I asked her, "Are you still in school?" because I couldn't figure out whether she was a college student or high school. She looked fairly young,
Uh-huh.
and she laughed a lot. Not laughed, but giggled, like I tickled her or something. Like she would just giggle, like. And I thought that's strange. And when I asked her if she was still in school, she didn't answer me. But he answered me, and he said, "No, I've already graduated from college." And he was probably closer to my age, maybe 20 years, 10 years younger. So, and I thought that was so strange, so strange. So later on, I actually talked to this young lady. I was kind of suspicious. I had my camera, and I thought, if I hear a knocking sound, I'm going to go outside and tape whoever knocked. Tape the hallway as being empty. So I had my camera in my hand. I heard a knocking sound. Opened the door up really quick. There that young lady was, and she was backing away from the wall, like she had tapped the wall. And I thought, well, it's the young lady. I wasn't sure whether she was, the daughter of the owner's sister or the daughter of the owner, even though I thought he had said he had only had one daughter. So I asked her, I said, I asked her right straight out, and I said, are you related to the owner? Because he said they were all going home Monday morning and they had already left. And she said, yeah, I'm his daughter, but I'm going to go later. And she even knew where they were going back to, so it was like an intelligent spirit. And so I thought, okay, well, that explains everything. And then there were like clothing strung all over the floor. And I asked her, I says, is this all your clothes? And she says, yes. And then she says, I'm just trying to figure out how to wash clothes because I have colored clothes and I have white clothes. And I told her, well, I usually just put them all mine in at the same time and do them. And she giggled. She thought that was funny. and then I asked her, I said, well, since you're the owner's daughter, do you want to do a paranormal session with me on the third floor? Because I told her I was getting ready to do the third floor. And she, seemed to be like, oh no, I wouldn't want to do that. It kind of caught her off guard, she didn't have anything to do with that. And I thought, well, that's strange because it seems like the family's so open to me doing paranormal, research here. And I think she'd want to be a part of that. And I figured if I had the owner's family involved, maybe the paranormal activity would even be better.
Yeah.
So anyway, she went on upstairs and, I shut the door and I figured I haven't heard any washing machine running. And the washing machine was noisy. In the apartment I was staying in, the washing machine was right along the wall of my living room. And I didn't hear anything. So I opened the door up about an hour later to check to see if she was done. Because I wasn't sure what room she was staying in, whether she was staying in the second floor or the third floor apartment. And I wanted to do one or the other, but the third floor was what I was hoping to do. So I opened the door up. All the laundry is up off the floor. And I looked at the washer and dryer, nothing in there. And I thought, well, I didn't hear it run. And I thought, I guess I'm getting so used to it, I didn't hear it. And then I thought, well, I didn't hear her leave because I could hear her walk up and down the steps. Well, at least maybe not. I think at least one time I heard her walking up and down the steps, but I didn't that day because I wasn't expecting the knock on the wall. But I was getting ready to go up to the third floor because he had told me that he was staying on the second floor with his wife and his sister was staying in the third floor apartment. So he said they were going to leave early that morning. So I was planning on doing a paranormal session on the third floor when I heard that knock on the wall. And that's when I saw the young lady. And that was the same young lady the day before that was out on the porch, with the owner and his wife and sister. So the situation is, I went up to the second and third floor, and she wasn't, I knocked first and opened the door, and there were nobody on the second or third floor. So that was kind of strange, because I thought I would have heard her come down, especially with a suitcase. So later on, I had talked to the owner, and I asked him about his daughter. And I said, the first time you all were here, you left Monday morning. And I said, your daughter stayed behind. And he says, daughter? And I say, yeah, don't you have one or two daughters? He said, I have a daughter, but she's not even in the country. She's working outside of the country. And I said, well, who was that lady I saw? And then he looks at me and he says, oh, yeah, I remember when you asked me if I was still in school. And I said, yeah. And he said, I offered you a seat and you wouldn't sit down. And I said, that lady I was telling you about, she was sitting in the seat at that time. And I said it was a young lady with really pale skin that laughed a lot, like she was just tickled to death. She would just giggle like, a teenage girl would giggle. And she had, like, I'd say either dark brown hair or black hair that was kind of like more like what, I don't know if you remember Shirley Temple, the child movie star, had that curly type hair.
Yeah.
Her hair was more curly like that, with the big curls that were like shoulder length. And that's what this young lady that I saw looked like. So then the owner said, well, that explains why he thought I was acting strange. He said, that's the reason why you asked me if I was still in school. And he said, when you asked me, you were looking at the chair like you were talking to somebody. Of course I was, but he couldn't see them.
Right.
So it was, I'd like to go back to see if I come across this young lady again. And I'm still not sure whether I want to write a book about the 1880 or not, because it's so much different than the guardian angel type book from the Hayes house.
Yeah.
But every place is different. But I think people would enjoy hearing about the young lady, but I have not been able to figure out who she is. And I did not realize at the time, even though I consider myself a seasoned veteran as far as being a paranormal researcher, I didn't even know that this young lady was a ghost or spirit, and I was having my suspicions because, I had heard taps in the hallway and just didn't respond to it, because it was I guess you could say a bed and breakfast. I don't know whether it was Airbnb or not. I can't remember, but there was actually 4 different apartments. There was 2 on the ground floor. One was add-on later on where you could get to from the outside. And then 3, the first floor, second floor, and third floor, you could get to from the front door. But whoever was in the other first floor apartment on the outside, the new addition, they still could gain access to the front door to do laundry, because there's the washer and dryer in the common area. So, at the time, I had no idea whether the tapping was somebody who was, coming in to do laundry. So I wasn't going to open the door up really quick and look, but I'm glad I did that day. Of course, I was getting ready to go do paranormal research. I actually thought at one point that I had my camcorder on, because sometimes I was trying to do different things where, I would like start my paranormal session, from the first floor, and just tell everyone that I'm getting ready to go to the third floor, and just as I go along, take a picture of the steps. So I thought that maybe I had my camera on, And I've never had time yet to go back and look at all the footage that I have stored in my external hard drive. So it may have been on. If it was on, it would be interesting to see if I could see her with my naked eyes, could the camera?
Yeah.
But if I could see her with my naked eyes, but the owner couldn't, then the possibility the camera might not either. It's
Yeah,
almost like the ghost or spirit is transmitting their visibility through your brain so that your brain is picking it up, but it's not really there for anyone else to see.
Right.
That's the only way I could explain it. But
Like-
I still like to see, if I did have the camera on, what actually took place, but I just haven't had time. And it's like
Right.
I'm always doing new paranormal research. I'm always trying to have fresh information to put on Instagram and my YouTube channel. And it's hard to go back and spend time, researching a, 2-year-old place where I did paranormal research. But I would love to go back and look at all of those hour-long tapes just to see what I have. There might be things that I have on camera that I don't even know about yet.
Right. I'd be interested in seeing if you caught anything. I'd be interested in you even researching this further, or maybe even visiting again. That'd be pretty. Like you said, you want to like write a book or whatever. So, what I think is that a lot of the spirits, when you experience them or if you see them, like it is only, especially if you see them, it's meant for you and you only.
Right.
So the odds of it being on your camera, like you said, is probably very little, especially if the owner didn't see her at all either. But you might have at least something on camera if your camera was on. So I'd be super interested in seeing that. So if you ever end up going back or you ever research that even further, and or if you get into your external hard drive, I would definitely be interested in hearing what you find, if you find anything.
Right. And
So,
I also was thinking about putting some of that, some of the sessions on YouTube also.
yeah,
I worry that if I put it on YouTube, it won't be quite as interesting of a book, even though I've talked about it a lot with still photos on Instagram. And I put, I guess I started the paranormal short sessions way before I was on YouTube. I didn't start putting. I didn't have a YouTube channel until May of 2021. But I started putting shorts on Facebook. At one point, Facebook would allow you to put on a minute or two video.
mm-hmm.
And then they cracked down on that to the point where you could only put photos. And then I was able to put a minute on Instagram. So I put a lot of the shorts that I had, and sometimes I would just do a short just for Facebook, and it's not, there's no other footage of it other than I was using my camera to put it on Instagram or Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's definitely something I would be interested in doing in the future. And I've racked my brain to think who this lady could have been. And I
Right.
even thought it might have been a lady from Apalachicola. It might have been a ghost or spirit that I had communicated with. I had tried to get permission to do paranormal research at many houses, probably maybe 200 in St. Augustine alone. I'm persistent, but it's hard to get permission.
Right.
So I hate to, say right now or guess, but you just rack your brain about what ghost or spirit would be that interested in me to want to communicate in that manner.
And that's a serious manner to communicate with you, that not only to actually talk to you, but actually show themselves to you.
And for a while, I was thinking, well, is this the elaborate trick that the owner's playing on me? Is it a practical joke?
Hmm.
I guess for almost a year, I didn't even mention it because I thought it was a practical joke. But I had communicated with the owner about it. Like, for instance, I had asked the owner if it could have been a lady that was just on the street who walked up and sat down in the rocking chair. And they said, to the best of their knowledge, nobody had ever done that when they were there during the time that coincided with the time that I was there. And I also had texted the owner about, could it have been a lady who was staying in the first floor apartment where they have access from the rear of the building. And they said, no, at that time, there was no lady staying in that apartment when they were, that coincided with the time that they were visiting. And I think they visited maybe at least 2 or 3 times when I was there. And I was there for about a 2-month period.
Wow.
It was right during the time that they had the COVID lockdowns.
Oh.
So the first month that I was there, it was pretty good because it was very, very quiet. And when the town got very, very quiet, because the 1880 Victorian in St. Augustine is kind of like downtown, the old part of St. Augustine. When it got very, very quiet, it was just a lot of paranormal activity going on. And I think it was just like ghosts of spirits passing through. I guess there had been so many, diseases that killed people in St. Augustine in the past. I guess somehow it stirred the ghosts of spirits up to thinking that, oh my, this is happening again.
Yeah. I could see that. So I actually just bought your book today.
That's good.
It's on Amazon. I don't know. Is there any other places that you can find your book?
I haven't checked in a while, but it should be any place online that sells books. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, Walmart. I've had people tell me that they purchase it online from Walmart.
Okay.
So I stopped paying the distribution fee during COVID because a lot of the brick and mortar bookstores were closed down. And so anyway, right now, the only thing I have is my publisher distributes to online sales. So.
Okay. All right. So when I looked it up, I found it on Amazon, and it said that there was only 2 left. So I was like, well, I'm not gonna wait. I'm just gonna buy it now. So I'm just listening to you talk about it. I'm so intrigued and into reading it. So another question I have, how
for anyone who's in like Great Britain or Ireland, it's available on eBay and Amazon in those 2 countries. And I think the same for Canada.
Okay, eBay and Amazon.
Yes, Canada,
Okay.
Great Britain, and Ireland.
Okay. So how would paranormal researching do you feel like you have gained fulfillment within your life with your research?
Yes, but there's so much more to do. I think that I could turn most Americans around from viewing paranormal as just purely horror movie or the
Your mic's
devil.
blocked again, bud.
What's that now?
There you go. Your mic was blocked again.
I see. So I think I could turn people around if I had a TV show where they would want paranormal to be interesting just from a historical perspective and also as a form of communication. Because most people look at everything as evil versus good, and the ghost is evil and the paranormal investigator is good. And it's, to me, it's never been that way. It's always been, I'm on the same footing as the ghost and spirit, and I've only ran across ghosts and spirits that have been either, neutral towards me or good, So I would like to change people's thought processes around to value the ghosts of spirits, and the guardian angel type ghost of spirit, I think, is kept here by keeping the things they loved when they were alive original. And if you change things too much, they might not have any reason to hang around and protect them.
Right.
And at the same time, you're getting rid of residual energy, which, that's about the combination, either intelligent ghost or spirit, or, the residual energy that just plays itself back like a tape recorder or a movie projector that's being turned on by the environment. And I like to see old things preserved for that reason. And also, you're preserving the history. Once you tear out the interior of a 1908 house, you're never gonna, you might put in something that looks similar, but it's never gonna be the same original, horizontal wood walls or tongue and groove ceiling boards. You're not gonna have that same. It's not gonna be the same original 1908 brass matching decorative doorknobs and, key base plates on the doors. Once you get rid of the original, 4 sunken panel doors, you might find something that looks like it, but it's not going to be the original 1908 doors. So, and I don't think it's that hard to save as much as possible. If it's damaged from a hurricane or termite damage or water damage, you're going to have to make some changes. But I just ask people, please save this stuff. And, I really feel that by doing the Hayes house, it has probably been the most rewarding, because I feel like the Hayes family, well, at least the Hayes family that's passed away, think that I'm really cool, and I think they're happy. But right now, at the rate things are going, my book will sell a lot better 100 years after I passed away. And people will be reading my book saying, well, this guy was way ahead of his time, But right now, the average American's just not ready to read about a good ghost or the guardian angel type ghosts. It's they want to stick to the guns that no, they're all evil and demonic, and I don't want to go there and read about that. Or my church says, that's not true, and that's not my interpretation of what a guardian angel is. And but I've found that the Hayes, the ghosts of spirits at the Hayes house, and also the Bucks from the Hayes house, I call it the Hayes house, but they've been very good to me and very nice, and I consider them to be friends. And I'm so glad I did the Hayes house. I really think that it kind of completed the circle of me doing paranormal research, because, up until that point, I had always had the theory that ghosts or spirits could be really good people,
Mhm.
and that if they wanted to, they could look after and protect something. And I certainly got that definitely at the Hayes house. And of course, it doesn't happen at every house.
No.
At the 1880, where it was St. Augustine rental property, a lot of the people that owned it just rented it out to vacationers that were all short term. A place like that where someone doesn't stay for 20 or 30 years, the paranormal isn't as good, because I don't think, most people that came for short-term rentals at the 1880 as a ghost or spirit, they're probably staying someplace else now. If it's still, there, they're probably staying at the house that they spent 10, 20, 30 years in. So they're probably spending less time at vacation rental property. And that's the way the 1880 has been used off and on since it was built in 1983. Correction, 1883.
Mhm. So I and really enjoy your outlook on this entire subject. Um, you're a very positive person, and it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you and listening to your take on things. And I'm definitely intrigued to read your book. I should be getting it next week, but I think I already know the answer to this last question that I have for you, just from your YouTube videos. But do you believe in Bigfoot?
Well, yes, I think that people have seen Bigfoot. If you look at the fact that gorillas in the wild in Africa were not actually um, put on camera or captured on camera until what, 1910 or 1915, I think it was, and only locals had spotted, short glimpses of them. And
Mhm.
up until that time, people didn't even think that gorillas were real. So uh, the Bigfoot is probably as intelligent as us, and it could be such a thing that it could be a time warp. Maybe during the Bigfoot's time on Earth, they were near, a lot of little black holes that can tear the fabric of time and send them to other locations for short periods of time. So, people have claimed they're there and then they're gone, they disappeared. Well, maybe you just saw them go back to their time. So, so even if they were alive 2,000 years ago, that doesn't mean that there's a time warp, that they're definitely alive during their time too. Um, so I think it could be something like that. It could be the connection between, ancient aliens. Maybe they are from another, you know, planet, and maybe they're just checking us out. Maybe they're more like the biblical watchers who were sent down just to keep an eye on us, but not interfere. There's all possibilities, and I think we should keep our minds open to that. I was going to write a book on what I would consider to be more like the ancient alien type subjects, but I'm so busy with the paranormal that I don't keep up with what has already been published. I would hate to write about my theories on some of the ancient alien information if it's stuff that's already out there and well known by other people. Even though I don't have time to really know everything about that subject matter, I might just be duplicating something someone else said, and the book would be a big flop. And books are way too expensive to not be as original as possible.
All right. All right. So You want to tell them where they can find you?
Well, my YouTube channel is um, Paranormal Short Sessions by Keith Evans. That's a long title. Also, I'm on Instagram at PetCat2006. I'm no longer on Facebook. And I'm on Twitter. I think Twitter is the same as the Instagram. I might be wrong, but I think it is. I think it is at. My battery's running low. I think it on my phone. Let me walk in here and plug it in so we don't get cut off. I think Twitter is also going to be at PetCat2006 because I think somehow they're connected.
Okay.
And if anyone would like to email me concerning a paranormal investigation, my email address is petcat2006@yahoo.com. So, in most cases, I try to go in to do paranormal research just to communicate with the ghosts and spirits. But if someone is experiencing problems with the paranormal, a lot of times I can tell them things to do via text messaging or via email. And a lot of times when they do the things I ask them to do, it usually simmers the problem down, or they understand that the ghosts and spirits are communicating in a way. A lot of times people get upset about it, but ghosts and spirits like to have their own. You say like a little kid wants to have his own room,
Right.
and sometimes ghosts and spirits just want their own little space, and that can be done a lot of times by giving a ghost or spirit a certain place in a closet or a basement where that's their territory, and a place where you don't utilize it too often. And when a ghost or spirit has their own little place within your house, they feel loved and respected. And a lot of times, whatever they're doing that is causing you to be unhappy stops. So if someone is having problems with a ghost or spirit and they want me to try to help them, a lot of times I can do that just by text messaging or emailing. I wish I had a budget, like the TV shows have to go on location, but that is sometimes rough, especially with the cost of gas now.
Right.
But I'm willing to help anyone that needs help. In most cases, most people just don't know enough about ghosts and spirits to feel comfortable with what is going on.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people will feel threatened by the paranormal activity, but usually it's just a ghost or spirit just trying to let you know that they're there.
Right. Perfect. So last thing I just want to say to you before I stop the recording, I just want to acknowledge the time that you served. So I want to thank you for serving.
Oh, thank you.